Isaac Newton. I mean, the name says it all, right? The guy who figured out gravity, invented calculus, a certified genius. So, how on earth did he manage to lose an absolute fortune? We're talking millions in today's money in one of the biggest market crashes in history. Well, that's the wild story we're going to unpack. This famous quote, which they say Newton uttered after his big loss, just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It perfectly frames the battle between cold, rational calculation and the totally unpredictable, sometimes crazy, psychology of a crowd. And the sheer scale of that loss was just staggering. We're talking more than 20,000 pounds. Back in 1720. In today's money, that's millions upon millions of dollars. A life-changing sum just gone, wiped out in a few short months. So this is the central mystery we're looking at. How did the man who could literally map the cosmos get so hopelessly lost in the chaos of a stock market bubble? The answer, it turns out, is a timeless lesson for pretty much any investor today. Okay, first, let's just get one image out of your head. Newton wasn't some absent-minded professor who just stumbled into the market. No way. He was a major financial player, a really sophisticated and, for his time, modern investor. I mean, just look at this. By 1720, Newton isn't just a scientist. He's a wealthy national celebrity. He's running the Royal Mint, for crying out loud. He's in the top 1% of earners. And he's not buying up lands like the old guard. Nope. He's a modern guy putting his money into these newfangled things called stocks and bonds. And the vehicle for this whole story was a company with a very grand-sounding name, the South Sea Company. And this wasn't some sketchy back-alley scam. Its origins were tied directly to the British government itself. So what was this company? Well, in a nutshell, it was created to help the government handle its massive war debts. And in return, the company got a monopoly on all trade with South America. So this thing was legit. It was backed by the government. And this is really where the dream takes hold. The actual trade monopoly, it wasn't even that profitable yet. But that didn't matter. It sparked the public's imagination. People were picturing these ships sailing back just loaded with gold and treasure, and that vision alone was enough to fuel an absolute speculative frenzy. So the company's promoters use this really confusing logic. You could call it a kind of mathiness to justify the skyrocketing price. It was basically a feedback loop. You sell new shares at a really high price, then you use that cash to make the company look richer on paper, which then justifies an even higher share price. It created this illusion of a perpetual money machine. But Newton, being Newton, was not easily fooled. He saw what was happening, he saw the mania for what it was, and he made a brilliant, totally calculated move to protect his fortune. See, he had been an early investor, and he'd done quite well. But in early 1720, he sees the bubble forming. He recognized the danger when everyone else was just seeing dollar signs. And so in April, he did the smartest thing you could possibly do. He sold everything. And his reward for this incredible foresight, a massive profit of around 20,000 pounds. I mean, at this point in the story, Isaac Newton is the hero. He's beaten the market, he's outsmarted the crowd, and he's walked away with an absolute fortune. He had made the perfect exit, the absolute perfect call. But here's the thing. While Newton's logic was sound, the market's madness was just getting warmed up, and it was about to reach a fever pitch that not even a genius could resist. And this is where the story shifts. It's not about mathematics anymore. It's all about psychology. Newton was now sitting on the sidelines, forced to watch as it seemed like everyone else around him was getting fabulously rich. This chart just shows you the insane pressure he must have been feeling. He sells here in April, but the stock doesn't crash, it explodes. It goes parabolic, rocketing to a peak in June. Can you imagine being the smartest guy in the room and then watching everyone else get even richer after you cashed out? The FOMO, the fear of missing out, it must have been unbearable. This quote from a London banker at the time just says it all. Even the professionals, the ones who were skeptical, felt like they had no choice but to jump in. The logic of the crowd had become more powerful than individual reason. And we're not talking about a small crowd here. It's estimated that something like 80 to 90% of all British investors got sucked into this bubble. So Newton wasn't some outlier who lost his head. He was part of an overwhelming majority that was caught in a massive collective delusion. And so, tragically, the man who had perfectly timed his exit decided to make a catastrophic re-entry, right as the whole thing was about to come crashing down. He didn't just dip a toe back in either, no. In June of 1720, near the absolute peak, he reinvested almost everything he had. And as the price started to slip over the summer, he doubled down. He bought more, convinced it would bounce back. And then, in September, the floor just fell out. The numbers on this table tell the whole heartbreaking story. He started with about 30,000 pounds. He rode it all the way up to 50,000 after his brilliant early sale, and then boom, he crashed all the way down to just 20,000 after it all fell apart. Just let that sink in. He didn't just lose his winnings. He lost all 20,000 pounds of his profit and another 10,000 pounds of his original money on top of that. It was a truly devastating blow. So what are we supposed to learn from the story of a genius's failure? Well, the lesson is pretty profound, and it's about the very nature of knowledge itself. And this is the core insight, right here. In physics, Newton famously said he stood on the shoulders of giants. He was building on solid, proven foundations laid by others. But in the brand new, chaotic world of finance, there were no giants. There were no established laws. He wasn't on solid ground. He was standing in a swamp. And this really brings us to the final question, doesn't it? Today, we live in an age of incredible data, technology, and AI. But when it comes down to that raw fear of missing out, to groupthink, to the madness of crowds, have we humans really changed at all? Newton's story is this powerful reminder that no amount of intelligence is immune to the irrational pull of the crowd.